Let's take this conversation to our virtual roundtable. Joining us today, ABC News political analyst Matt Dowd and Brandeis University professor of American history, Leah Wright Rigueur. Thank you both for being with me. Leah, let's start with you. If Biden's cabinet picks are all confirmed, I think we can agree history is going to be made for sure with regard to diversity. So what else stands out to you here? These are definitely not career people. They're not reality TV stars. There's no family members in the mix. It's quite a switch from the last administration.
Certainly. So it's definitely a picture of representative America. And I think, the Biden-Harris team has actually gone to great length to try and find, people that are representative of the nation in all of its diverse parts. So we're seeing diversity in terms of age. We're seeing diversity in terms of gender. We're seeing diversity in terms of migrant, immigrant citizenship experience. We're also seeing a diversity in terms of career appointments or career politicians versus people who have far more, far different experience, right, coming from different kinds of backgrounds. And I think what's important to point out here is that, right on through really the Nixon era through the present, up into the Trump administration, it was taken as a fact that you would have some kind of representation of America within the cabinet. And so what we're seeing is a reestablishment of that moment. And that's important because it signals a direction that the Biden-Harris administration plans on going in.
Matt, I can't wait to sit in that briefing room at the White House. It's going to be so unbelievably different. I think the energy, these picks also appear to be pretty fine-tuned to avoid giving Republicans something to rally against, right?
Well, yeah, I think that's the difficulty, not only for what was just said, the incredible diversity of this the group of folks. I mean, it's reflected also in Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, which is an incredibly diverse first and second person of power in this. But I think the Republicans, there'll be some Republicans that are going to be wholesale against every single pick of Joe Biden because they know that some members of the Republican base want that. But it's going to be really hard for these people who are all thoughtful, who are all sort of people that have made a career of being competent in what they do. And the incredible diversity, as we've talked about, makes it very hard for the majority of the Republicans in the Senate to come out wholesale against every one of them. There may be one or two, and we'll see more picks along the way that the Republicans decide they're going to make, a point in taking one or two of them out. But a lot of that depends on what happens in January in the special election. If the Democrats win both seats in the Senate, then it really doesn't matter what the Republicans think about the picks in the Senate because the Democrats will have the Senate and be able to put through any pick they want.
Yeah, we've got our eyes on Georgia now for sure. Leah, President-elect Biden created this new role of special envoy on climate. Diane asked Rachel Scott about this. She's based in Delaware right now, following Biden, rather. Why create that role, and how significant do you think it will be?
So I think, the creation of this role is a significant moment. It's historic in terms of what, the new administration, the incoming administration sees as their priorities. So it's not necessarily just that they see climate and climate change as a national security issue, although I do think that's apparent, but also that they see it as a priority for this administration. So there's been a lot of talk about how COVID-19 and health concerns are the clear priority for any incoming administration, but particularly for Biden-Harris. And that's been quite plain. But they're also making it plain that climate and climate change and the kind of policies, procedures, legislation that goes into that is wholesale part of their vision of New America. They talked a lot about that on the campaign trail. They talked a lot about it in the immediate aftermath of the election. And now they're essentially putting their money where their mouths are by saying we're going to establish this position that is solely devoted to climate and to climate change. And I think that's really important. And it's also important to put somebody like John Kerry, somebody who ran for president, somebody who's been a career politician, but also somebody who is deeply invested in these ideas of climate change in that position.
And Matthew, you've been a part of the transition teams in the past. What changes now since the White House decided to cooperate? And can Biden's team make up for the lost time?
First, to answer the second question, they absolutely can make up for the lost time. And one of the reasons why they can make up for the lost time better than probably most is Joe Biden was just recently in the White House. There's a whole bunch of people that they're bringing in senior leadership positions that have worked in and around the White House. And so I think they can make up for that time fairly fast. This whole process that we've been through has been unprecedented. The fact that this letter didn't come down until last night. But I think the Biden folks have already been in plans. He's already got a huge part of his personnel picked out. I think he's already vetted many of those folks, and the folks that we haven't heard from yet will be announced, I'm sure, shortly. I think he does this in a fairly efficient process, but he is faced with probably one of the hardest things the president will be faced with, which is this pandemic, when he arrives on, and how he deals with the vaccine and what happens in the coming 100 or 120 days. And I think there's two crises. The crisis that he now has to deal with climate change, which I was on the opposite side of John Kerry with working for George W. Bush in the campaign in 2004. I think it's a stellar pick. And I think one of the reasons it's a stellar pick is Joe Biden wants to quickly rejoin the Paris Accord. And I think in that process, which is affected in this transition process, having John Kerry, who was Secretary of State, in that position will help rejoin fairly quickly. And I think we have to get our neighbors and our people that are involved in international alliances to trust us again. So I think the country looks at us today and they say, okay, they're getting their act together. Joe Biden's president-elect. He's got a handle on this. And let's see what comes on January 20th.
So Leah, Biden's pick for Secretary of State Antony Blinken shared part of his stepfather's story, who survived the Holocaust. Let's take a listen for a moment.
At the end of the war, he made a break from a death march into the woods in Bavaria. From his hiding place, he heard a deep rumbling sound. It was a tank, but instead of the Iron Cross, he saw painted on its side a 5-pointed white star. He ran to the tank. The hatch opened. An African-American GI looked down at him. He got down on his knees and said the only 3 words that he knew in English that his mother had taught him before the war. God bless America. That's who we are. That's what America represents to the world, however imperfectly.
Blinken, they're describing the U.S. as a beacon of hope to the world. Leah, how has that vision of America changed over time?
So I think, it's a powerful story. It's an incredible, and it has all of the elements that I think the Biden and Harris administration have tried to convey through their campaign, through the pandemic, the global pandemic, not just of health, but also of this pandemic around race and racism and bigotry and xenophobia. And it's trying to convey all of these elements. And we heard, Joe Biden earlier today said, America is back. But I think the thing here, and this is a kind of a fine line to walk, is a reminder that America is an imperfect beacon of hope. And that, in fact, that, the end of the Trump administration doesn't mean simply a return to greatness. And for a lot of people may actually be something much more complicated. It means we have an opportunity to move towards greatness and to repair a lot of the damage that has been done. But it simply doesn't mean that it disappears in a moment. So I think there's certainly the opportunity for that. And that's what this narrative conveys and what Biden and Harris, want to convey. But they have an enormous challenge in front of them. And these cabinet positions and these cabinet picks, it's just the start of something.
Oh, we'll be following every part of that something for sure. Leah, Matt, thanks so much for being with me.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.